I'm 84 years old. I say that out loud sometimes just to hear how it sounds. It still surprises me. Most days, I don't feel 84.
I feel like someone who blinked for a moment and woke up here, with hands that shake and a house that's too quiet. I'm not telling this because I want sympathy. I don't have much use for that anymore. I'm telling it because time has made me honest, and because there isn't much time left to pretend I don't know what I lost. When you're this old, you think about time differently, not in years, but in what's left. Mornings matter more. Evenings feel heavier. And the past doesn't sit behind you anymore. It sits right next to you, like someone you never finished talking to. I spent most of my life waiting for the right time. I didn't call it that back then. Back then, it sounded responsible, sensible, mature. I told myself I was being patient. I told myself I was building something first, a career, stability, a future, all the things people praise you for when you're young and busy and tired. In my 20s, I believed time was generous. I had just finished school, started working, and everything felt temporary, in a good way. Small apartments, long hours, cheap meals. I remember thinking, this isn't life yet. This is just the setup. So I postponed things. I postponed rest. I postponed joy. I postponed difficult conversations. I postponed love, even when it was sitting right in front of me, asking for a little more attention than I thought I could spare. I told myself I'd get to it later. Later became my favorite word. In my 30s, life filled up quickly. Work followed me home. Responsibilities multiplied. People depended on me, or at least I thought they did. I learned how to be useful, how to be reliable, how to say yes when I wanted to say no, and no when I wanted to say yes. I wasn't unhappy. Exactly. That's important to say. I wasn't miserable. I laughed. I paid my bills. I went to bed tired and woke up tired and assumed that was what adulthood felt like. There were moments, though, quiet ones. Standing in the kitchen late at night, driving home alone, watching the same television shows without really watching them. In those moments, something would nudge me from the inside and say, "Is this it?" I always answered the same way. Not yet. I thought the right time was something you could recognize. Like a sign would appear. Like the noise would quiet down and someone would tap you on the shoulder and say, now you can live. So I waited. I waited to take trips I talked about for years. I waited to sit with people instead of rushing past them. I waited to ask myself hard questions because I was afraid of the answers. I waited to slow down because slowing down felt but falling behind. And every year, the waiting felt more justified. By my 40s, I had a rhythm. Routines are dangerous that way. They make everything feel permanent, even when it isn't. Days started blending together. Weeks disappeared. I began measuring time in deadlines and obligations instead of memories. I missed things without realizing I was missing them. A phone call I meant to return but didn't. A birthday dinner I skipped because I was exhausted. A walk I said I'd take this weekend, over and over again. None of it felt tragic at the time. That's the part that hurts the most now. The damage didn't announce itself. It whispered. People around me adjusted. They stopped asking as often. They learned my patterns better than I did. I told myself that meant they understood. What it really meant was that they adapted to my absence. I don't remember the exact moment I stopped being curious about my own life, but I know it happened. Somewhere between responsibility and habit, I began moving through my days on autopilot. I did what needed to be done. I did it well enough. And I told myself that wanting more was selfish. Waiting became comfortable. Comfortable doesn't mean peaceful. It just means familiar. By the time I reached my 50s, I started to notice small changes. Energy didn't return as quickly. Recovery took longer. The future didn't stretch as far in my imagination. But even then, I thought I had time. Plenty of it. I said things like, when work settles down, when things are more stable, when I retire. Retirement became the new right time. the promised land, where everything I postponed would finally fit. I worked toward it like it was a finish line. Along the way, I lost touch with parts of myself I assumed would be waiting for me at the end. My sense of wonder, my patience, my ability to sit still without feeling guilty. I didn't notice how quiet my life had become. Not peaceful quiet, hollow quiet. There were people I loved. I know I loved them in my way. But love needs attention. It needs presence. And presence requires time you're willing to give without conditions. I gave time conditionally. I'll be there when things calm down. I'll listen when I'm less tired. I'll show up when it's more convenient. That version of me thought he was being careful, strategic. He thought he was protecting the future. He didn't understand he was spending it. When I look back now, I don't see a single terrible decision. I see thousands of small delays, each one harmless on its own, each one reasonable, each one easy to justify. Together, they built a life that looked full from the outside and felt unfinished from the inside. I remember telling myself, "You're still young." Even in my 60s, I said that. I believed youth was a mindset, something you could preserve by staying busy and relevant. I didn't realize youth is also permission. Permission to start over, to risk embarrassment, to waste time on things that don't make sense but make you feel alive. By the time I began to understand that, I was already tired in a way rest doesn't fix. Now, at 84, the waiting is over. Not because I found the right time, but because there isn't much time left to wait. And that's a heavy thing to sit with. I didn't notice the turning point when it arrived. That's another thing time does to you. The moments that matter most don't come with music or warnings. They come disguised as ordinary days. For me, it was a phone call. Not dramatic, number, shouting, just a voice telling me someone I loved was sick. Very sick. The kind of sick that doesn't wait for the right time. I remember standing there with a phone in my hand, staring at the wall, thinking about all the things I hadn't said yet, all the visits I had postponed, all the conversations I assumed could happen later. Later suddenly felt very small. I went to see them as often as I could then, or at least as often as my habits allowed. Even in crisis, I still negotiated with. Time still thought in terms of schedules and convenience. But illness has its own clock. It doesn't care about your plans. I sat in a quiet room, listening to machines hum, watching someone grow smaller day by day, and I realized how unfamiliar we felt to each other. Not because we didn't love one another, but because we hadn't shared enough ordinary moments. We hadn't wasted time together. We had saved it like it was precious. And in doing so, we never really spent it. There were things I wanted to say, but I didn't know how anymore. We had spent years talking about practical things, updates, logistics, surface level, comfort. We had forgotten how to talk about fear, about disappointment, about longing when they died. There was no explosion of emotion, just a deep, settling quiet, the kind that stays. That was when clarity arrived. Not like a revelation, more like exhaustion. Like finally admitting something you've known for a long time, but didn't want to say out loud. I had waited too long. Not just with that person. With myself. With my life. After that, everything slowed down. Not because I chose it to, but because it had to. Grief does that. It strips your days of excess. It makes you notice how empty your calendar really is when you stop filling it with obligations. I tried to reconnect with things I had. Delay, hobbies, travel, people. But there's a difference between choosing something freely and reaching for it out of regret. Some doors don't open the same way once enough time has passed. There were friendships that had gone cold. We spoke politely, carefully, like strangers who shared a past but no present. There were places I visited that felt smaller than they had in my imagination. There were moments I thought would feel healing that instead felt hollow. I realized then that timing isn't just about when you do something. It's about who you are when you do it. The version of me who finally had time wasn't the same person who had postponed everything. I was slower, more cautious, less open. I carried too much history. Some things need youth, not energy, but openness. The willingness to be changed. I didn't have that anymore. What can't be fixed is not just the past. It's the opportunities that only exist at certain ages, certain seasons, relationships that require shared struggle, dreams that depend on risk. I can't go back and sit on the floor with people who are gone. I can't hear their younger voices again. I can't become the person I might have been if I had stopped waiting. That's the part no one likes to talk about. Acceptance doesn't erase loss. It just teaches you how to carry it without dropping everything else. Now, my days are quieter. I wake up early because my body does, not because I have somewhere to be. I drink my coffee slowly. I look out the window more than I look at screens. I notice birds, light, dust in the air. I think about how strange it is that I finally know how to live, just as life is nearly finished with me. If you're listening to this and you're younger than I am, I won't tell you what to do. I don't believe in instructions anymore. I'll only tell you what I wish someone had told me. Plainly, without drama, there is no right time that arrives and gives you permission. There is only now, and the version of yourself that exists inside. Waiting feels safe. It feels responsible. It feels like you're doing the mature thing. But waiting has a cost, and it charges interest quietly. The people in your life won't stay the same while you prepare. Neither will you. If something matters to you, it will always feel slightly inconvenient. That's how you know it's real. I don't regret working hard. I don't regret trying to be dependable. But I regret believing that life would pause while I got ready it does. If this story stays with you for a moment after it ends, that's enough for me. You don't owe me agreement or action. Just honesty with yourself. As for me, I'm 84, and I don't have much time left to wait. So I don't. I sit with memories, even the painful ones. I speak when I feel something instead of swallowing it. I let days be simple, and when the house is quiet at night, I don't distract myself from it anymore. I let the quiet speak. It has earned that right. This is the truth I arrived at too late. But it's still the truth, and it's all I have left to give.